Got it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control Podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by senior on the Yale women's lacrosse team, Taylor Lane. In her lacrosse career, Taylor has played in 54 games and has 65 goals, 31 assists, 88 ground balls, and 46 caused turnovers. This has allowed her to be named to the second team All Ivy League, a unanimous first team All Ivy League selection, and an Ivy League All Tournament team honor. Taylor also earned the Yale team's Bulldog Award and helped Yale to its first Ivy League championship title in school history. Before college, Taylor was an Under Armour All-American 3 times and was a NEPSAC Western New England All-Star in 2019 for Greenwich Academy. In soccer, Taylor won the Golden Boot Award and helped their team to 3 tournament championships. And I'm super excited to have her on today. So thank you so much, Taylor, for coming on the podcast. And how is everything going?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of it. Everything's going well. How about you?
I'm doing well, just in trying to enjoy the last few weeks of summer before school starts.
Me too.
And how has your summer been going so far? What have you been up to both on and off the field since the season ended?
Yeah, my summer's been great. I had an internship earlier this summer at a private equity firm, so I was really busy doing that and now have a few weeks off, which is really nice to spend some time with family and friends before heading back to school. We have a big family Olympics coming up this weekend, so I'm definitely excited for that.
May I ask, what are the Family Olympics?
Yeah, it's actually the first one we're doing, but it's my dad's side of the family. It's being hosted at my house. So a lot of work going into that, but we're planning the games. My dad's family's huge. It's like 50 people, so I'm excited to have a one last reunion before everyone heads back to school.
Sounds awesome. What are some of the events that you guys are planning? Is it like actual Olympic events, or is it like other board games and stuff like that, I guess?
We're trying to make it like the Olympics. It's actually in honor of my grandpa who passed away, who was a coach himself. So we're trying to do a bunch of the games that like he made us play at his house. So we're doing like closest to the golf pin. He really liked golf. He was a football coach, so we're doing a bunch of like flag football type games, which should be interesting for the girls, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, the Olympics were super fun to watch last week. I thought I like the sports that I never get to see. I only get to see every 4 years. And I feel like, I don't know, it'd be cool to add some of those, maybe like to help you. I feel like breakdancing would be cool. Like that would be one sport to add because I saw some of that and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Definitely. We should look into that. I won't be participating in that event, but
Well, outside of just the Family Olympics, what are some things you've been working on this summer, lacrosse wise, to get ready for fall ball?
yeah, I've just been really staying in shape. I've really tried to focus on my shooting this summer and my dodging. And I have a little sister who plays lacrosse too, so that's always really helpful to have someone to push you to get out to the field, to feed you in front of the goal and stuff. So
And obviously, you're going to be a senior soon. I guess I could say you're already a senior now. But have you thought about the type of leadership you want to bring towards the team, being one of the more veteran players on the team for next season?
yeah, my class is huge. So we have 17 people because of the COVID pandemic. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of experienced upperclassmen on our team this year. So I really just want to continue our team culture and work ethic that our coaching staff has instilled in us for the past 3 years at Yale. And hopefully that can bring us really far and have another really great season.
Well, I want to transition now and sort of start talking about the beginning of your lacrosse career and sort of work all the way up to where you are today. So, from the research I did on yourself, it says you're from Norwalk, Connecticut. So, talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so I actually started playing lacrosse in 6th grade. I played soccer my entire life, and like that was my thing. I wanted to be on the U.S. Women's National Team, and so my mom actually made me start playing lacrosse. She played in college herself, so she was the one who really motivated me to do that, and I really didn't want to. At first, I like really didn't like it. I only wanted to be a soccer player, but I'm obviously really grateful that she brought me that. And Norwalk is a great city. I love living in Norwalk. It's definitely in the middle of the lacrosse hotbed of New Canaan and Darien in Fairfield County, which I've been really lucky to grow up playing with and against all those talented players out of this area. Um, but Norwalk itself is definitely not considered part of the hotbed. And so that was interesting growing up in that program, but I was really lucky to go back and coach during the COVID pandemic. So I actually got to coach a Norwalk town team that my little sister was on. So that was a very rewarding way to give back and to see the Norwalk program really growing the game, especially in the hotbed, which is awesome. And in the beginning of coaching, like girls came up to me, came to practice that didn't even have a stick and didn't know where to get a stick and couldn't get a stick. So it's really rewarding just seeing that and being able to give back to the game in that way.
Yeah, also must have been nice too to get a different perspective on the game when you weren't playing. I'm assuming you learned a lot about maybe yourself a little bit as a lacrosse player, as a coach, because you could sort of see stuff that you normally wouldn't see as a player.
Definitely. Maybe it was a little too competitive for the fifth graders, but
Well, as long as if you win, you're having fun as well. So it makes it more fun to win. So I totally get that.
true.
Now, growing up, who were some of your favorite lacrosse players that you like to watch? And did you have like a favorite team, or were you more of like a soccer fan and just like to watch that?
Yeah, I was definitely a soccer fan, but I loved watching lacrosse too. I think that was a big part of why I got into it. I think my favorite, there's so many players I watched, but my favorite, which was maybe kind of unique at the time, was Olivia Homp. She played for Princeton, and I just thought she had such a unique and creative way of playing around the goal. And she's actually from my area. She's from New Canaan. And I'll never forget when I was a kid one day with my friend, we were just playing around on the New Canaan High School field. And she was there shooting too. And we were like, oh my gosh, celebrity sighting. But I'll never forget how she like invited my friend and I over to shoot with her, even though we were so young and definitely not making her better. But that was just so nice and something I'll never forget that she did.
Now, you sort of alluded to this already in the interview, but you come from a very athletic family. Your dad played football at UConn, and your mom played soccer and lacrosse at Boston College. So I just wanted to ask you, talk about what it's like growing up in that family and how have your parents helped you in regards to your lacrosse career? I know you said your mom convinced you to play, so obviously you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful to my parents for everything they've given to me. And it's definitely nice being a part of an athletic family with big shoes to fill. And they just taught me so much about sports in general, even as a really young kid. I feel like they really instilled in me that hard work, you can really reach your goals by working hard. And I had the quote like taped on my wall as a kid that said, hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. So I
Mhm.
always remember that, like when practices get hard, even in college, to just keep working hard and to always be humble is something my parents also taught me, and to always, at the end of the day, always take a minute to be grateful and remember everything sports have brought to you and how fortunate you are to be able to play on these fields with these coaches against these amazing teams with your best friends for life. It's sports is something that you'll always remember and the best memories of your life.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any competitiveness between you and your mom? Like, do you think you're the better lacrosse player in the family right now?
I don't know. I'm definitely not the better athlete. You know, my mom played two sports in college, so she'll always have that on me. But yeah, very, very competitive family. My sister thinks she's the best athlete. She's only 12 right now, but it's good to have some healthy competition.
Yeah. Hey, maybe one day she will be, so that's very
Right.
possible.
Exactly.
I have to ask, were you a BC or UConn fan growing up? I feel like that must be nice because you could just be a UConn fan for basketball and then for hockey you can root for Boston College and no one can say that you're a bandwagon because your parents went to both those places.
Very true. Yeah, I definitely was a UConn basketball fan, especially on the women's side growing up. We
Mhm.
always went to those games. I'm such a big fan of their team. They're incredible. And I definitely was a BC women's lacrosse fan. Yeah.
Okay, not anymore though.
Me too. I know. Now it's a conflict of interest, especially when we play them. And my mom's like, who do I root for? So,
I feel like you got to root for your daughter's team. At least that's what I would do. So,
yeah, luckily she does. She flipped.
now before college, you played for your school at Greenwich Academy. So, just talk about your lacrosse experience there, what you took away from it, and what's like your favorite memory from your Greenwich Academy lacrosse days when you look back on it now.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to GA. The teachers there are incredible, and I had such great coaches there. I was really lucky. And my friends there as well on the lacrosse team, they all like a bunch of them play D1 lacrosse. So it was always really competitive, which definitely made the transition to college a lot easier with the speed of the game for me. And we always played a really competitive schedule. We played teams from all over. You know, like I said, the hotbed area, there's no lack of competition for sure. And I think that environment just really prepared me for the college game. And I think my favorite memory was probably during our preseason trips. During spring break, we were always really lucky to be able to go down to Florida for a week, and we played like Vero Beach High School, American Heritage. We played really competitive teams down there, and we always had a lot of fun on those trips.
And how do you think your experience with Greenwich and your club experience sort of helped prepare you for college with Yale?
Yeah, I think just the rigor of this area, being Greenwich Academy lacrosse, as well as the club team I played for Lisa Lindley at CT Grizzlies, and she's an unreal coach. She definitely knows how to win. And I think this area and the competition that's here really prepared me really well for Yale and for the teams we play against in college. And it also adds a really fun element when every team you play, someone on the other team and can give them a hug after the game. It's really fun.
Now, you mentioned this before, but you also played soccer growing up. I just want to ask, how do you think that sport helped you out in lacrosse? I assume just to for burnout purposes, but also I feel like maybe your footwork improved a lot because you played soccer, and that must have translated on the lacrosse field, I would assume as well.
Definitely. I credit my soccer experience as a kid like to everything. I mean, I don't know who I would be as a lacrosse player if it weren't for my many years of soccer. I just think the field awareness, like with cutting and knowing where to be in the positions on the field, is really transferable to the lacrosse field. And I had so many tough soccer coaches growing up who I still think about in my lacrosse days, and I still keep in touch with them. So I think even from a coaching standpoint, just having those tough coaches as a kid really like helped me and made me ready for what the college game has to throw at you, and allowed me to like be able to take criticism better. And always was told like play as many sports for as long as you can growing up, and I totally agree with that statement. That's what I tell my sister and younger kids that I coach to this day. So I just think playing all the sports you can just improves your game as an all-around athlete and everything.
What position did you play in soccer?
I played center midfield.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about soccer, but I'm trying to get into it because I saw that the US women's team won the gold medal recently. So, but I feel like it's hard because I only like watching the US teams, but then once they stop playing, it's hard to sort of get into club soccer. So that's sort of my downfall because I rather watch like the NFL and NHL and stuff like that.
I know there's a lot to consume out there. I know I'm a huge US women's national fan as well. That was awesome to watch them win gold.
And I saw that the men's team hired a new coach, so hopefully things are on the upward trajectory for US lacrosse or for US soccer in the future.
Right, right.
So let's talk about your recruiting process now. What was that like for yourself, and what made you want to go to Yale versus other schools you might have looked at?
Yeah, so I kind of always wanted to go to Yale as a kid. Growing up, like I live pretty close to Yale right now, so I always played on those fields as a kid. So I thought Yale was the coolest thing ever. And Reese Stadium, I was like, I just wanted to play there one day. So I always grew up going to their camps and playing on those fields. And I actually have some like family history in Yale as well. My grandma grew up in New Haven. She got married on Yale's campus eventually, and her family had an Italian restaurant in New Haven as well. So I kind of grew up even before I played lacrosse, coming to New Haven, eating New Haven pizza. It was kind of like a family tradition. So definitely feel that when I was committing to Yale in that process, it was like all I wanted as a kid. So that made it an easy decision. But I really also considered going to Navy. I that was like the place I also really wanted to go. I visited there, and I had like never been more in awe of a place and the people there at the Naval Academy. And I just think like that's the highest honor, to serve your country. And so it was a really hard decision, but ultimately being close to home took it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never been to New Haven, but like what place has the best pizza? Because I know there's like a competition between like certain establishments, so I assume you would know what's the best spot to go to.
Yeah, it's very controversial. I personally, I think Modern has the best pizza, but people usually say Sally's and Pepe's.
Okay, okay.
If
I
you ever
remember
find
some.
yourself up there.
Yeah, I know someone. I remember watching a YouTube video of someone like doing like a review of all three places. So I feel like, and everyone says it's the best pizza they've ever had. So I feel like at some point I gotta try that.
Definitely. It will live up to your expectations for sure.
Now, getting back to lacrosse, what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make as a freshman? Because obviously you missed. I don't know if you were one of the freshmen that missed their actual freshman year because of COVID, but I'm just sort of curious how you sort of learned to adjust to college lacrosse, especially with the big freshman class like have with 17 players.
I actually was one of the players that missed the freshman season. The Ivy League unfortunately canceled all spring sports seasons during the pandemic. So that was tough. I actually came to school in the fall and then I ended up having to take that gap semester in the spring to like maintain my eligibility and to be able to play for full seasons at Yale. But I think as a person, the biggest transition for me into college, well, like I said, I came in during that kind of unconventional time during the pandemic. So just living on campus, like it was really strict, the rules with the pandemic. Like you were locked in your dorm room, you had to quarantine alone for 2 weeks. If cases rose in your residential college, they would literally lock the gates. So it was definitely like a weird experience. I think that was really hard for me, being away from my family and living under those strict rules. You couldn't even see your friends because I didn't have any lacrosse friends like in my college with me. So that was definitely hard. But looking back on it, it was still exciting having four new walls starting college. And Yale's definitely not like that now. So at least it was an upward trajectory from the pandemic. I think on the field, though, the biggest adjustment I would say was really like the demands of the tough schedule. Like obviously you play more hours in college. You're definitely I didn't lift as much in high school as I do in college now. So just like being able to maintain your body and taking care of your body and going to treatment when you need it, I think that was the biggest adjustment for me.
Now, what's it like playing in the Ivy League and just the competition you face each game? Because I feel like the Ivy doesn't get as much recognition as it should. Like you have good teams like yourself, Cornell, and Harvard and Princeton, and I feel like you see those teams in the rankings usually every week. So I'm just sort of curious what it's like being a part of that conference and just the competition you guys face each game.
The Ivy League's an amazing league. The history of the league is even more cool if you ever look into it. But I think that for the Ivies in general, like since I've been playing in the Ivy League in the past 4 years, I think the Ivies really took a step back during the pandemic when other teams were able to practice and play a full season, whereas our whole team was on gap semester, so not playing as much. So I think that was hard to come back from, but definitely a motivator throughout. Um, I think this year, like seeing like 5 to 6 Ivy Leagues in the top 25 at once was awesome. Like for our league to get back in there, it's definitely a powerful conference and it's only getting better. So I feel like the trajectory for the Ivy League is only up from here. You know, playing Princeton and Penn and Harvard, they're all such incredible teams. And I think their athletes and recruits are only going to get um, more powerful as we go on here.
Now, how have you learned to balance both academics and lacrosse at such a high level, especially at an Ivy League school where the academics are at a very rigorous level and very it just it's hard to balance just academics where I'm going to school. I can only imagine how difficult it is for you going to a school like Yale and playing lacrosse at the same time.
Yeah, I've grown up being an athlete. I've never not played sports and had a tough practice schedule. So I honestly think for me, it's been easier being an athlete. I actually am way less productive doing my work when we're out of season and I get distracted and I don't know how to manage my time as well. So I think just having that practice block really helps athletes just maintain their time. And yeah, I think it makes it easier. And I was really lucky to have a rigorous schedule like that in high school too with academics and athletics. So I think that prepared me really well for the balance that you get in college.
Now, let's talk about your team's performance over the past few years that you've been on the team. So, during your freshman season, your team lost the Ivy League championship to Princeton. How have you reflected on that loss and your freshman season now as an incoming senior?
Yeah, that was a tough loss. No one likes to win by 10, especially in a championship game. But it's really driven us in the past 3 years. And I think for my class, like I said, my class is huge and has always made up a large proportion of the starters when I've been at Yale. But I think for us, it's really been experience. So that was all of our first championship game, and we didn't even know what came next in that process. We didn't even know what Selection Sunday was as a freshman. So I just think having that experience and becoming upperclassmen has really driven us in those championship games in the postseason every single year.
Now, your team went from 11 wins in your sophomore year to 17 wins this past year. And I talked to Fallon Vaughn a couple months ago on this podcast, and I asked her the same question. And one of the things she told me was that the Taylor Everson injury really affected the team your sophomore year, and she felt like that had an effect on the performance, as well as just a lot of growing pains. So my question to you is, I'll ask you the same question is, what did your team work on in between those seasons to make that jump? Because I just felt like that was probably I felt like your team improved the most, I guess, between the 2023 season and the 2024 season.
Definitely. Yeah, it was great to have Taylor Everson back from injury. She's an incredible player. So that definitely also drove us forward that season and this season, having her back. But I think nothing really changed. Erica's coaching philosophy has always been the same. She always says, you can't win an Ivy League championship in the fall, but you sure can lose one. So she's always motivating us to work hard, even in the off season. I think we didn't change anything like fundamentally about our team. I think our chemistry really just improved over the years. And I think, like I said, just the experience. Being an upperclassman is so different than being a freshman. You can say you've been there before and you know how to act. And I think also we worked on like situations. So in the postseason, when you're up by one or down by one, we had more experience in those situations. So we kind of knew how to handle them better.
Now, individually, what would you say was your biggest improvement you've made as a lacrosse player throughout your time with Yale?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think in high school, I really bounced around positions, and there were always like a lot of players on the club team. I played a little bit of attack, a little bit of defense, but I think like being a two-way midfielder in college is a lot more demanding. Like you're not resting on the attacking end or the defensive end or on the draw circle. Like you really have to capitalize on every single end of the field because if you don't, there's someone on the bench who will. Um, so I think just like being able to have that stamina to make plays on every side of the field and be locked in for the entire 60 minutes of the game, whether it's on defense, on the draw circle, midfield play between the 30s, or being able to score and feed on attack. I think I've just developed my like more fulsome game as a whole.
Yeah, and I feel like as a viewer, I feel like I've noticed that as well. I feel like you're a very versatile player on both ends of the field. I'm curious how you sort of work on that part of your game.
Yeah, they do really, really amazing job at Yale with our coaches, like our defensive coaches, Colleen, our offensive coaches, Erica and Molly. And they really work to make sure the middies are getting both sides of the game. So whether it's if you missed a defensive portion of practice because you were on the attacking portion, they'll let you stay after practice if you want to. So there's definitely like just so much opportunity to grow your game. We do a whole draw team with draw circle team after practice. So it's definitely a lot of work, but it's rewarding and everyone wants to be a part of it. Everyone on my team loves the game and wants to play as much as they can every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed this about yourself as well. You're fifth all time in Yale program history in draw controls. This is the draw control podcast, so I thought I'd ask what is your draw control secrets and how do you work on that part of your game? Obviously, I don't want you to reveal all your secrets in case any of your opponents are listening to this, but just some insight on like what you do to work on that part of your game would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I give all the credit to my teammates. Seriously, it's just really the chemistry that our draw unit has built over the past 3 years that I've been at Yale. And our centers, Jenna and Sky are our main draw takers in Paris. And they work so hard in and out every day. They spend extra time in film, extra time in draw squad, is what we call it at Yale. And they make sure we know exactly what the game plan is before every game. And whether that's texting the night before the game just to make sure we've got everything covered, like they are so thorough and they really take pride in that part of their game. And I'm on the circle a lot with Fallon, who's actually my best friend off the field. So it's really nice to have that chemistry with her on the draw circle. And I mean, the centers, and especially our coach, Molly Holzman, who does a lot of our draw unit work. She's just always doing the scout, always preparing fully, and she makes sure we're ready for anything that's thrown at us. So I really give the credit to them for that. There's no secret.
Yeah. Well, I wish that I knew that you and Fallon were best friends. I would have had you on the podcast together. I think that would have been more fun. So,
But
but
yeah.
it is what it is. Now, this past season, your team won the Ivy League championship. So just talk about what that championship meant to you. And obviously, you got the OT winner. So just talk about that play because I heard it from the other perspective of the Fallon who assisted on that goal. So I'd love to hear your perspective on scoring that goal and just sort of the emotions that you're going through after that happened.
That was an incredible game, just all over the field. Our defense completely stood on their heads. And how our team really just executed in the last 5 minutes of that game, coming back from a deficit. And we were really fueled for that game. We had lost the year prior to Penn in overtime as well. So this year we wanted it more. And just to make multiple plays happen in the sequence that they did at the end of that game was just a credit to everything we've worked on this season. I don't think it was our prettiest performance of the year, but it ended how it should have. And for the last play, I was just in the right place at the right time for a great pass from Fallon. Fallon's an incredible player, and like I said, we have great off and on field chemistry. So she's a really fun person to play with.
I assume when you're growing up, you always think about scoring the game-winning goal, but you never really expect it to happen. So I'm just that how what was sort of what was going through your head after you scored that goal?
Yeah, I mean, I barely even remember it. That was such a high pressure moment, but it felt so good for my teammates. Just seeing them all like jump on each other at the end of the game. I just knew every single one of them on our team had worked so hard this season, and just to see the culmination of it in that moment and everything we worked for was just so rewarding.
Now, in the tournament, you guys beat John Hopkins before losing to Syracuse in the third round. What'd you take away from your tournament experience this season, especially beating John Hopkins? Because I think they were an underrated team this past year.
Definitely, yeah. A bunch of incredible, talented players and coaches on that Johns Hopkins team. It was really exciting to get that win on our home turf. I think hosting in the NCAA tournament was a huge advantage, and it was so fun to see so many fans come out. Um, I just think that's really projective of our future, that Ivy League teams, especially like Yale, can contend with these national powerhouses like Johns Hopkins historically is. And that was really, I hope our season continues next year like it did with the Ivy League tournaments in our past. That experience will bring us really far. And that was my first time playing in an NCAA tournament. So to get 2 games or 3 NCAA games, sorry, under our belt in the postseason was huge for experience levels, and just to be able to play like back to back like that, I think was something my team hadn't done a ton before. So hopefully we'll be even more ready for that next year and ready to make an even farther run.
Yeah. So I that was sort of my next question, but what are your team's goals and expectations for next season?
I think to continue what we've got going, we're so proud of our past season, but that's really in the rear view mirror at this point. And our coach Erica really emphasizes that we can be proud of ourselves, but it's guns a blazing for the future. And we'll learn from our past mistakes. And last year we weren't even ranked going into the season in the fall. So that really was something that drove us. But I think we had a lot to prove last year, even to ourselves, being not ranked. I think that's a hard place to start. But this year we just have to own it and prove to ourselves and everyone that we're competitive at the highest level. And I think the Ivy League as a whole can be really competitive this year, top to bottom. So I think that will be something that's really exciting to watch for our league.
Yeah, and probably a little bit different too, because there's going to be a target on your team's back being the defending champion. So a little bit
Right.
different mindset, but sort of the same mindset, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Well, let's move on to the final segment of the interview, which I call 5 questions that have nothing to do with sports. And the goal of this segment is to hopefully get to know you a little bit more off the field. So, first one is if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
I think I would have to say Jennifer Lawrence, because all the little girls I coach always say I look like Katniss from the Hunger Games. So, and I think Jennifer Lawrence is really funny. So I guess I would say her.
Now, what is the most underrated holiday and what's the most overrated holiday?
Oh, I love the holidays. So that's a really tough question. I guess I would say underrated Thanksgiving. The food is just so good and only eat it once a year. And
Hmm.
it's also just so great to see family, especially in college. It's like the perfect time to come home and see everyone. And overrated, I think I would say Halloween, because I loved Halloween. I think dressing up is so fun. As a kid, I loved it. But when you get older, there's no trick or treating in college, even though I wish there was.
There should be, in my opinion. I think that would be cool going to everyone's dorms and doing that, but it's probably not the safest thing to do. So that's probably why it
Right.
doesn't happen.
Totally.
Now, what's the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
I actually just started reading this book. It's called Season of Life. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's by Jeffrey Marks, and it's about football and life lessons. And I just started reading it, but it's been really interesting so far. I know you said you like football, so maybe it could be
Yeah.
a future read for you.
I should definitely check that out. I feel like the most interesting football thing I've seen this week was more just like training camp stuff and like how they have like certain helmets now that they have to wear during training camp to help prevent concussions. It's like a skull cap. So I just
Oh
think it's
wow.
pretty interesting, and a player actually wore it during a game. So I'll be interested to see if like that becomes sort of the new norm with concussion protocols in the NFL, because I find that stuff pretty interesting to learn about. I remember reading a book about it from the doctor that like sort of discovered like CT and the effects of it on football players.
Wow, very cool.
Now, I want to ask a question about some of your teammates. So, which player on the Yale women's lacrosse team has the best off the field style?
Off the field style, I think Alex Hopkins probably. She's the fashionista of our team.
Who's the funniest teammate you have?
I think either Fallon or Cami Donadio. She's a goalie on our team.
Now, last non-lacrosse question is, what is one item on your bucket list that you hope to accomplish one day?
It's been my lifelong dream to open a bagel shop. So maybe at some point in my life that will be my calling.
That would be awesome. Do it in the same spot where your grandmother had the Italian restaurant. I feel like you gotta carry that tradition.
That would be cool. That would be full circle.
Now let's get back to some lacrosse questions. Now, the one I just want to ask you before we end this interview is just what should be done to help grow women's lacrosse from your perspective? And I think you have your sort of unique perspective because you're in the college game now, but you also have a younger sibling who's sort of going through a similar process that you went through. But I'm just sort of curious from those perspectives that you have, what you think should be done to help grow the sport to make it even bigger.
Yeah, I think it's been amazing through having a little sister that plays and through coaching, just seeing how much the game has grown since I was there when I was younger. And it still has so far to grow, obviously. Um, I think to grow it, just maybe like increasing the visibility around women's lacrosse. I know we make steps every year. Like this year, the men's and women's championship weekend is in the same location at Gillette, which I think is huge for the game. Just doing things like that. And I think even like maybe assimilating the pro league with the college game and the youth like a little more. I think younger kids have so much fun when a college team plays at their high school, or the pros come and play back at a I just saw, like, I was watching the MLB Little League World Series last night, and I saw like the MLB is playing on the
Yeah.
Little Diamond after that, and I was like, that is such a cool idea. I wish we had more of that in lacrosse, but it's definitely growing, and I think I'm seeing more and more of that as you go on here. And I think just like even developing the pro league and making it, I don't know, just enhancing the pro league for girls a little bit. And I've always like loved the idea of, I'm sure you've heard about how people go back and play in Lake Placid after they graduate. And I think that's just such a fun idea. And I love upstate New York up there. Um, but I think like maybe even having incentives for graduates to go and play with their team. Like it'd be so cool to get the team back together and have like the Yale Bulldogs playing, girls playing in 5 years after we graduate.
Yeah.
I think everyone would love it, and just maybe growing that tournament a little more too would be awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with the visibility aspect because I saw that the U20 World Championships is going on right now, but like it's like on the streaming service they have to pay for, and
Yeah,
it's like hard to find. And just feel like if you made that more accessible, that tournament would be more people would watch. So I feel like little stuff like that definitely goes a long way.
definitely small steps, but in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, family members, and friends, and who should we have on the podcast next?
I just give a shout out to my family. I think I have a huge family of fans that always come to my games. So thank you to them for their support through it all, and to my Yale Women's Lacrosse teammates and coaches and strength trainers, everyone just working so hard. And I'm really excited to have a great season coming up. And have on the podcast next. One of my really good friends from high school plays at Penn, our rival. So her name's Paige Lippman. I think she would be great on your podcast next.
Awesome. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on. I really appreciate it. I think you're a great player. I think you're a great person, and obviously looking forward to seeing you play next season and trying to go even farther than you guys did this past year. So it should be fun to watch.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me, and keep up the great work. You're growing the game by doing this. So thank you. Thanks for having us all on here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.